continue that the angiosperm. All right, that one we started in the previous class, and then it was very much incomplete. So we have learned that in the angiosperm, reproduction is mainly sexual, but they also reproduce by vegetative means. Okay, vegetative means is there, and sexual reproduction is oogamous type, and all the plants of angiosperms, so they are heterosporous, so they produce microspores and megaspores. The microspores, they are also known as the pollen grain. These microspores are produced in the male reproductive structure. The male reproductive structure is stamen. That male is stamen, and in the stamen there is filament and anther. Anther is the main reproductive structure bearing portion, and within the anther there is a microspore mother cell develops, or they are also known as pollen mother cell. This pollen mother cell undergo meiosis, and after meiosis pollen grains are produced within the anther, and then they are released from the anther, and these pollen grains, they are haploid. All right, this is all the stamen together, group of stamens that within a flower we call what? Androecium. The female reproductive structure, that is the pistil, or we call carpel. This carpel together make what it is called? Carpel together is gynoecium, is it? Or we can say gynoecium is made of carpel, and this carpel or pistil, they have three portion. They, at the top there is a stigma. Stigma is for receiving the pollen grain. Then long or short stalk-like structure, that is the very nicely named style, and then basal broad portion, that is the main part, and this one is called ovary. Within the ovary there is one or more ovules. Within ovary produce ovules. These ovules we can say megasporangium. Is it? Ovules. So here maybe one or more ovules are there. This is ovule. If we see the ovule, in a ovule, what is there? There is a main body called the nucleus. This nucleus is surrounded by, from all sides, it is covered by covering layers, one or two layers, and this covering layer are the integument. Okay, these are integument, outer integument and inner integument. And there is, of course, this nucleus is covered from all the side, but leaving a small opening. This opening is known as micropile. Okay, micro means small and micropile. This is means a small opening or a small door. Okay, a small passage or opening. So this portion of the ovule is the micropilar end, and opposite to this side is known as chalaza. So this is the chalazal end. This one is a anatropous ovules in which the micropile face downwards, so that is the towards the base to which the ovule is attached. Okay, this one is funicle. Funicle is the stalk of the ovule. Okay, to this the ovule is attached to the special tissue of the ovary, that is the placenta. So this portion is placenta. Okay. Now, if we see this nucleus, within the nucleus, actually I will draw another one, say in a very big way. Say this is nucleus, and within this nucleus develop a cell. This is made of many cells, all are made of cells, this nucleus, but one cell in this which become large, and this one is known as megaspore mother cell. So within the nucleus develop megaspore mother cell. This megaspore mother cell undergoes meiosis division, and by meiosis it produces 4 haploid megaspore. Okay, 4 haploid megaspores are produced by the meiosis division of megaspore mother cell. This, out of these 4, usually 1 megaspore survive in most of the cases. Out of the 4, 1 survive usually, and that is the functional megaspore. So it is functional megaspore. Now these functional megaspores, say from here if this is this one divide, then this is forming say 4 cells. Okay, these 3 of these will degenerate and one will survive. This functional megaspore then enlarge. Okay, one cell enlarge, and now this one will divide by mitosis. Okay, only the nucleus, not the entire cell, means cytokinesis does not take place. So this nucleus divide into 2. This cell also enlarge, the nucleus divide but not the cytoplasm. Next division, the cell also increase and each nucleus will further divide and it will form 4 nuclei, and again it will divide, and by the time this cell also is enlarging and there produce 8 nuclei, and this enlarges cell. Now this one is the embryo sac. This one is known as embryo sac because within this sac or the bag, this embryo will develop. Embryo will form and embryo will develop. This is also known as female gametophyte. This is female gametophyte or the embryo sac. Now there will be organization. Okay, organization what? So it is 8 nucleate initially and 4 nuclei at each pole. This side is a micropilar end, this side is chalazal end. See this is the nucleus, is it? So this side was, if we see this one, this is nucleus, and within this nucleus has developed the female gametophyte, and here 8 nuclei have formed, is it? So this one is the embryo sac. So this is chalazal end, this is micropilar end. So now see here what is happening here. Here, out of this 8 nuclei, now what will happen? This nuclei along with some amount of cytoplasm, there forms the cell membrane. Membrane will form around the nucleus and that will form a cell. So within this large cell, that is embryo sac, now several cells will be formed. How many cells? This one organized like this, that three from here, 3 nuclei from here, they will form the cell, and in these, one will be very prominent. Very prominent. This one will form the egg. I will draw a little bit with the color. So 3 of these nuclei which will form cell, they will organized into group of 3 cells, and this group of 3 cells, they are known as egg apparatus. Okay, these 3 egg apparatus, and in these, one is that the middle one, this is egg, and 2 on the side, they are known as synergid. So this egg and synergy together is known as egg and synergy together known as egg apparatus. So three organize into egg apparatus towards the micropilar end. Remember which side? Micropilar end. And 3 nuclei from the chalazal end, they also form the cell, and they will form a group of 3 cells. This group of 3 cells, this group of 3 cells, they are known as this is called antipodal. Okay, these 3. Antipodals, how many? 3 cells. Now what happened? That one left here and one here. Nucleus, one here, one here. These nucleus, they are called polar nuclei, and they will move to the center. These are the, from the pole it is coming, so it is polar nuclei. This polar nuclei, they will fused together, and then it will be known as secondary nucleus. Okay, so either they will form, they will be, I will draw it here only. Okay, so this one is now secondary nucleus. So within the embryo sac, there are 6 cells and 1 nucleus. So about this nucleus, some says no, it is cell also. So it is finally 7 cell. Okay, finally 7 cell. But initially, before organization of this is a 8 nucleated stage. The embryo sac is initially 8 nucleate, but later on it become 7 celled, where actually it is 6 cell and either 2 nuclei, polar nuclei, or 1 secondary nucleus. This is the mature embryo sac. In the mature embryo sac, every cell they are haploid. Why? Because this has developed this is the megaspore. Is it? This megaspore is haploid because developed by meiosis. So this is haploid. After this mitosis division. Okay. So two haploid nuclei. Next, this is the first division. This is second division of mitosis, and there are 4 haploid nuclei, and then third division of mitosis, there are 8 haploid nuclei. So all the cell, the synergid, egg, they are haploid. This antipodal, each one is haploid. But this secondary nucleus, this is the product of fusion of 2 polar nuclei. So this one is diploid, 2n. Okay, clear? Each polar nucleus is haploid, but when they fuse, their fusion product is secondary nucleus, and it is diploid in nature. So within ovary, there is ovule, and within the ovule nucellus. Within the nucellus, they are developed female gametophyte or the embryo sac. Within embryo sac, develop the egg apparatus, egg, polar nuclei, the secondary nucleus, and the antipodals. So they are mature. Now what happened that then next step, when they mature, there is pollination. By pollination, what happened? Pollen grain from the anther, they by some agency, agency may be air, water, or any animals, insect, bird, anything, human beings. Okay, but through the agency, it reached to the stigma of the carpel or pistil. Okay, there the pollen grain germinate. Pollen grain on this pollen grain that which are deposited on the stigma, they germinate and germinate by producing pollen tube. Okay, by producing pollen tube. pollen tube grow through the stigma and style tissue, and ultimately it reach to the ovary, and in the ovary there is ovule. Then this pollen tube, the nucleus of the pollen grain by the time has produced two it has produced two male gamete or the male nuclei. Okay. Male gametes. So here actually each pollen grain produce two male gamete, and this is carried by the pollen tube to the ovule, and in the ovule synergids, and ultimately through the micropile this pollen tube enter the embryo sac. Say it is through this it enter embryo sac, and here it release the two male gamete. Okay, this is released male gamete. Okay, now out of this one male gamete, say first and second, first male gamete, it fuse with the egg. The process is called syngamy or fertilization. It fuses and then it forms the zygote. This zygote is diploid, 2n. Is it? That is, it is diploid. This is syngamy or fertilization. One is here. The second one, the second male gamete, that fuse with the secondary nucleus. And this form the primary endosperm nucleus. Primary endosperm nucleus, sometime PEN, you can remember like this also. And here what is happening, that two, this secondary nucleus is the fusion of two cell already, two polar nuclei. So two have fused, and now the second, third one also is coming together. So this one is the result of fusion of three cells. So this is called the triple fusion. form the primary endosperm nucleus. Okay. Now, this zygote divide by mitosis repeatedly and form a mass of tissue which later on organize, and this one is called the embryo. In the embryo, there are the embryonal axis, and embryo consists of embryonal axis and one or two cotyledons. In monocot, one cotyledon. In dicot, it is two cotyledon. In the embryonal axis, there is a radicle and plumule. Okay, this is produced within the ovule, and this now after the fertilization, this now the ovule is known as seed because it matures, it forms the seed, and the ovary, that is ovary, form the fruit. Okay, this primary endosperm nucleus, later on this one start division. Okay, this is a nucleus, then it divide, and after that the entire cell, entire embryo sac, that undergoes the division. Okay, and it form a mass of tissue that is known as endosperm. Endosperm is a nutritional tissue. This is nutritional tissue which supply nutrition to the developing embryo. All right. Okay, one thing that this primary endosperm nucleus, what is the cytological status of the primary endosperm nucleus? Say the secondary nucleus is diploid because 2N, two polar nuclei has fused, and this male gamete, it is 1N. So 2N plus 1N. So primary endosperm nucleus is 3N, means it is triploid. 3N means triploid. Normally the structure is triploid. Now another important, very important thing is that in case of angiosperm, what has happened? One pollen grain has produced two male gamete, and two male gamete fuse with two different cells. One is the egg and another one is secondary nucleus. So we can say this one fertilizing two cells. Two male gamete is fertilizing two cells. So This is two fertilization. So we call this process as double fertilization. This double fertilization is a unique feature of angiospermic plant. It is not found in any group of plant in whole of the plant kingdom. Okay? It is not found in algae, not in bryophyte, not in pteridophyte, not in gymnosperm, only in the angiosperm. So this is a feature of angiosperm, unique feature. And so there is a double fertilization, and this one is triple fusion. So double fertilization and triple fusion takes place in the angiosperm only. Triple fusion is that the two polar nuclei and second male gamete or one of the male gamete that fuse together. So thrice fusion. And double fertilization is that in angiosperm, out of the two male gamete produced, one fuses with the egg cell to form the diploid zygote, and the another male gamete fuse with the secondary nucleus to form triploid primary endosperm nucleus. Due to this double fertilization or triple fusion, the endosperm tissue is developed. All right. Now come to another important thing, that what we call alternation of generation. In plant life, there are two generations. Okay, these two generation, one is called gametophytic generation, phytic generation. This one is always haploid, and this is related to the production of gamete. Okay. Another generation is a sporophytic generation. This is characterized by the diploid, that is 2n, and it is the sporophytic generation is responsible for spore production. This is production of spores. In the life cycle of any of the plant, these two generations comes alternately, one after the another. One after another, the sporophyte and the gametophyte generation keep on coming. That is alternately. Gametophytic generation, that is n, and then it became 2n. N to 2N, N to 2N. This way it cycles in the life. So this is known as alternation of generation. So in the life cycle of all plant, the two generation, sporophytic and gametophytic, keeps on coming alternately, or the sporophytic generation alternate with gametophytic generation, and this is known as alternation of generation. Now another thing is that two generations are coming alternately. In the life cycle of plant, which one is dominant or prominent generation in the plant? So based on that, which one is, whether the sporophytic generation is prominent or the gametophytic generation is prominent, the plant life cycle or alternation of generation life cycle of plant can be divided initially into three main type. Okay, one is called haplontic life cycle or haplontic alternation of generation, haplontic life cycle. Okay, or haplontic. The next one is diplontic life cycle, and the third one is haplodiplontic life cycle. So what happened in the haplontic generation, haplontic type of life cycle, this haploid phase or gametophytic generation is predominant. Okay, haploid phase is dominant. In the diplontic life cycle, it means like here, the diploid phase is dominant. And here haplodiplontic, both the phase are of equally, more or less, both the phase are more or less equally dominating. This type of life cycle is found in case of is bryophytes and pteridophyte. Okay. In this one, in haploid phase, haplontic life cycle, this one is common in algae. Common in algae. Diploid phase is, that is the common, it is gymnosperm and angiosperm, that is in seed plants. It is gymnosperm and the haploid diplontic is bryophyte and pteridophyte. You can see this, I will show you from your book only. Okay, this diagram of, say, plant life cycle and alternation of generation. This is here, that is the this is the life cycle. You can see that it is haplontic. In haplontic, if we total life cycle we see in the form of a circle, okay, complete 360-degree, no, a circle, then major part of the life cycle is a haploid. Here what happened? The main plant body, the gametophyte, that is haploid. This gametophyte produce gamete by the process gametogenesis. Gametophyte produce gamete, and after the gamete fusion of the gamete, that is syngamy, they produce the zygote. Zygote is the diploid stage, and this is usually the single cell structure. The zygote immediately divide by mitosis and they form haploid spores. Okay, so again it is haploid. The spore germinate, again gametophytic plant. So the diploid generation is represented by single cell, that is zygote. So this type of life cycle is called haplontic and very common in case of algae. The diplontic life cycle, here diploid phase is dominant. See, the sporophyte, plant body is a sporophyte and dominant. It is prominent structure in the life cycle. The plant body is a sporophyte. This sporophyte produce gametes by meiosis. So gametes are produced, they are only the haploid structure. And this gamete producing structure and the gamete, they are dependent on the sporophyte. This haploid phase, they don't have independent life. Okay, no free living. And after that, this gamete fertilize to form the zygote. The zygote is diploid, and the zygote don't undergo meiosis, but zygote by mitosis developed into the male plant body. So entire portion in the diplontic life cycle, meiosis takes place during the production of spore. But in haplontic life cycle, meiosis takes place zygote. In diplontic, not in the zygote, during spore formation. And next is, that is almost 50-50. That is in case of bryophyte and pteridophyte, in both the cases, the sporophytic generation and the gametophytic generation almost having prominence. Here also, of course, they say the in bryophyte, no, bryophyte plant body is gametophyte. This gametophyte produce the gamete. Gamete after fertilization give zygote, but the zygote does not undergo meiosis. They produce a multicellular structure, the sporophyte. Then a sporophyte produced by meiosis produce the spores. So comes to the haploid stage. So haploid and diploid generation is more or less, it is equally dominance. So this is haplodiplontic life cycle. But there is a little bit of that though in algae the life cycle is a haplontic type, but some of the algae shows diplontic life cycle as well as haplodiplontic life cycle. So some of the member of the algae like Ictocarpus and Polysiphonia, they exhibit both, they exhibit haplodiplontic life cycle. Okay, in this plant, in this algae, haploid plant is there, diploid plant also is there. So this shows haplodiplontic. And another from the fucus in rhodophyceae, and member, they shows diplontic life cycle like the higher plant. Higher plant means like angiosperm and gymnosperms. That's why sometimes it is believed that the evolution of the land plant has taken place from the algae only. Because in the algae, we find almost all type of life cycle that is found in plant. So this is the, now we will see some, okay, only I think 5-10 minutes is left. So we can solve some question today, or 5 minutes is left only. So do you have any question? If anything you want to ask. Okay, you see another diagram that is showing this one. Okay, this is through the diagrams, the life cycle of angiospermic plant is being shown. This is the mustard plant showing this one is a sporophyte. Okay, this is a sporophyte. This sporophyte produce the reproductive structure, the flower. Within the flower, there is two different reproductive structure. One that which is produced is the carpel. In the carpel, ovary is there, and there is stamen. In the stamen, anther is there. So within the anther produce the, this anther is also known as microsporangium. Within the microsporangium, within anther, by meiosis, here it should write meiosis, it produces the microspore. Okay, that is the pollen grain. And pollen grain, by one or two division, it forms the gametophyte, male gametophyte. This side, within the ovary, there is ovule or the megasporangium. Within the megasporangium, there develop ovule, or within ovule there is embryo sac. This one, embryo sac. Okay. Within embryo sac, there develop egg, and this male gamete, after pollination, this microspore after pollination, it germinate, and this male nucleus, this microspore nucleus divides, and they give rise to the male gametes. Male gametes, and this male gamete is carried by the pollen tube. So this is, as the tube is carrying the gametes, male gametes, so it is known as siphonogamy, siphonogamous type of fertilization. Okay, siphonogamous. Siphon is tube, so siphonogamous fertilization. Here it is different from pteridophyte and bryophyte. In pteridophyte and bryophyte, the transfer of the male gamete to the female gamete require the presence of water. So dependency on the water is there, but in case of gymnosperm and angiosperm, the dependency on the water for fertilization is not there. After the fertilization, the zygote is formed, zygote is diploid. This zygote divides by mitosis and it forms the embryo. This embryo, this portion is suspension. This is the main part of the embryo, that is the main body of the embryo. Here two cotyledons are there, and ultimately this embryo, that is on germination, this will give rise to new plant. So this way that life cycle is completed. Here you can see the slightly yellowish or brown structure this side. This portion is gametophytic generation, and this major portion is the white portion. This is the diploid or the sporophytic generation. Okay. So I will stop it here today. Do you have any question? In the next class, we will have the question practice only, no description. And another thing, that question will be from the angiosperm as well as question from the entire portion, that is the plant classification, plant kingdom. Okay, algae, fungi, algae, bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperm, all. There will be mixed type of question and the classification. Okay. Any question? No. Then I will stop here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Welcome. Stop here.